Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Gates. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Beyond the Gates, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. You ever think you know someone and then one night changes everything? That's what happened to me. My sister Kat swore up and down that Tomas Navarro was no good, that he wasn't worth anyone's time. And maybe I should have listened. But pride makes you do stupid things. I wanted to prove her wrong, and before I knew it, I crossed a line I can't uncross. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life shattered when the toxicology report came back on her husband Doug's crash. It wasn't just alcohol, they found drugs in his system. And that ugly truth pointed straight to Joey Armstrong's casino. Now secrets, lies, and betrayals are unraveling all over Fairmont Crest. Trust me, this story isn't what you think it is. Eva proves Kat wrong. Vanessa learns the ugly truth. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who would get tangled up in someone else's games, but life in Fairmont Crest has a way of pulling you into storms you never meant to stand in. My name's Eva Tomas, and if there's one thing I've learned about myself, it's that my pride sometimes drives me into places I shouldn't go. My sister, Catherine Richardson, if you want to be proper, has always had a way of making me feel like I had something to prove. She's sharp-tongued, quick-witted, and brutally honest, sometimes to the point of cruelty. The latest of her little truth bombs came during one of our late-night talks, when we'd had a glass of wine too many and were speaking more freely than sisters probably should. That's when she brought up Tomas Navarro. Now, Tomas is complicated. He's charming in that lazy, casual way men sometimes are, the kind of guy who never seems to try too hard but somehow still manages to get under your skin. I noticed the way women looked at him, how waitresses lingered at his table a second longer than necessary, how Chelsea once joked that she'd take him for a spin if Eva wasn't hogging the view. But Kat, being Kat, had to put her twist on it. She leaned back, crossed her legs, and said, almost like she was dropping some great revelation, "You know, Eva, I don't get the appeal. Tomas is mediocre. In every way that counts. Especially in bed." I choked on my wine when she said it. Not because I was shocked she'd say something like that. Kat never had much of a filter, but because I never actually thought about Tomas that way. I mean, sure, I noticed him. Who wouldn't? But I hadn't let my mind wander too far down that road. At least, not until she planted that little seed. It wasn't just the comment itself, it was the way she said it. Smug. Like she knew something I didn't. Like she was daring me to challenge her. And that's where it started, this ridiculous, messy need inside me to prove her wrong. You see, Kat and I have always had this unspoken rivalry. Not mean-spirited, not exactly, but sharp enough to leave marks. She's always been the one with the sharper edge, the quicker comeback, the ability to leave a room buzzing just because she walked through it. And me? I was always the one cleaning up the mess, the one people confided in, the nice sister. But I hated when she acted like she knew the world better than I did. So when it came to Tomas, I found myself wondering, what if she was wrong? What if, beneath all that casual charm, there was something more? What if Kat, for once in her life, hadn't seen the full picture? That thought clung to me like smoke after a fire. I ran into Tomas a few days later, outside the coffee shop on 5th. He was leaning against his motorcycle, his sunglasses pushed up into his dark hair, holding a cup of coffee like he had all the time in the world. He spotted me before I saw him, and when he smiled, it was like he knew something I didn't. "Eva," he said, his voice low and warm. "You look like you could use a better cup of coffee than whatever's in that paper cup." I laughed, because he wasn't wrong. "You think yours is better?" He shrugged. "Depends who's sharing it with me." Now, I should have walked away right then. I should have chalked it up to Tomas being Tomas, flirty, playful, maybe even harmless. But instead, I found myself standing there, sipping bad coffee, listening to him talk about the new bar that opened downtown and thinking about my sister's smug little smile. And that's how it started, the slow unraveling of common sense. Meanwhile, across town, Vanessa McBride was living through a nightmare of her own. I'd seen her at the market just days before, her eyes hollow, her voice strained as she tried to pretend everything was fine. But we all knew it wasn't. Doug, her husband, was gone. The car crash had ripped through her life like a lightning strike, leaving nothing but ash and unanswered questions. Vanessa had always been the kind of woman who seemed steady, like she could weather any storm. She'd been with Doug for years, had stood by him through his gambling, through his drinking, through all the rumors that floated around Fairmont Crest like smoke from a fire no one could put out. But when the news broke that Doug had been under the influence during the crash, Vanessa's world cracked open. She told me once, in a rare moment of raw honesty, "Eva, I could forgive him for a lot of things. But not this. Not leaving me with this mess, with everyone whispering about how careless he was." What she didn't know then, what none of us knew, was that the ugly truth was so much darker than she imagined. Jacob Hawthorne, one of the sharpest cops in town, had been digging into Doug's final hours. And what he found didn't add up. The toxicology report hinted at something deeper, drugs in Doug's system, not just alcohol. The kind of drugs you don't just accidentally take. Rumors swirled that Marcel Malone, the bartender at Joey Armstrong's casino, had slipped Doug the wrong thing. That maybe Joey himself had a hand in it. And though Joey swore up and down he was in Puerto Rico with Vanessa at the time, suspicion has a way of sticking, especially when you own the casino where half the town's secrets get buried. And Vanessa? She deserved answers. She wasn't the kind of woman to sit quietly and accept the story everyone else fed her. She pressed Jacob, demanded the full truth. Because when you've lost everything, what more do you have to lose? Back in my world, though, I was balancing on the edge of a choice I knew could change everything. Kat's words echoed in my head every time I saw Tomas. Every time he leaned in a little closer, every time his hand brushed mine, every time he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. And maybe it wasn't just about proving her wrong anymore. Maybe it was about proving something to myself. But how far was I willing to go? The problem with choices is that they rarely come in neat, well-wrapped packages. More often than not, they show up in fleeting moments, the ones you don't even realize are happening until afterward, when you're replaying them in your head and wondering, why didn't I walk away? For me, that moment came one evening when I stopped by the Navarro garage to pick up my car. Tomas was there, sleeves rolled up, grease on his forearm, a little smudge across his jawline that he hadn't bothered to wipe away. He had this way of making even sweat and motor oil look like part of his charm. "Eva," he said, smiling that easy smile of his. "Your car's all set. Took a little longer than I thought, but I made sure it'll run smooth." I should have just thanked him, taken the keys and gone home. That's what a smart person would have done. But instead, I lingered, watching the way his hands moved as he wiped them on a rag, the way his voice dipped lower when he said my name. And before I knew it, we were sitting in the office, the air thick with the scent of oil and something else. Tension, maybe, or anticipation. "You know," Tomas said, leaning back in his chair, "your sister doesn't think too highly of me." My heart gave a jolt, because I knew exactly where this was going. "Kat doesn't think too highly of anyone," I said, trying to play it off. But he smirked. "She told you, didn't she?" I froze, coffee cup halfway to my lips. "Told me what?" "That I'm no good," he said plainly. "That I don't measure up." My face burned. Kat's words echoed in my head. "Mediocre. In every way that counts." "People talk," I muttered. "She doesn't know everything." He leaned forward then, eyes locking on mine. "And you? What do you think?" That was the moment right there. The moment where I could have laughed it off, changed the subject, told him it didn't matter. But instead, I felt that stubborn streak rise up inside me. That need to prove Kat wrong, to prove to myself that I wasn't just the nice sister who never took risks. So, I didn't back away. And that was the beginning of the fire I couldn't put out. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life was unraveling piece by piece. She'd been waiting on Jacob Hawthorne to bring her answers about Doug's toxicology report, and when he finally showed up at her door, his expression alone told her it wasn't good news. "Tell me," she demanded, gripping the edge of the doorframe like it might hold her up. Jacob sighed, running a hand through his hair. Vanessa, it wasn't just alcohol in his system. There were drugs. The kind that don't mix well with anything else. If he'd had even one drink on top of it, it was a recipe for disaster. Her stomach twisted. Drugs? Doug, never. He wouldn't. Jacob's voice was steady, but his eyes were heavy. I know. That's why I don't think it was voluntary. We're looking into where he was that night, who he was with. The trail leads back to the casino. The casino. Joey Armstrong's empire, the place Doug had spent too many nights, too many paychecks, too many broken promises. Vanessa felt her knees go weak. So you're saying what? That someone slipped him something? Jacob didn't answer right away, and that silence was louder than any words could have been. That was when Vanessa knew. The truth about Doug's death wasn't just ugly. It was sinister. Someone had wanted him gone. Back at the garage, Tomas and I crossed a line that night. I won't dress it up or pretend it was some kind of grand romance. It wasn't. It was raw, messy, reckless. Two people caught in a moment that spiraled into something more. And afterward, when I was lying there, staring at the ceiling, the weight of what I'd done sank in. Kat's smug face flashed in my mind, but it wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was dread, because proving her wrong came with a price. Tomas turned to me, brushing a hand across my arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. So? Was she wrong? I swallowed hard, unable to answer, because the truth was Kat wasn't wrong. But she wasn't right either. What I'd found in Tomas wasn't about being good or bad. It was about stepping into a dangerous game where feelings blurred and consequences loomed. And I knew, deep down, that if Kat ever found out, it wouldn't just be about Tomas. It would be about the fact that I'd crossed a line for no reason other than pride. Vanessa's world kept spiraling. She started digging, the way only someone who refuses to be left in the dark can. She pressed Jacob for every detail, demanded records, receipts, anything that might tell her where Doug had been and who he'd seen before the crash. And every road led back to Joey's casino. The whispers grew louder, that Marcel Malone, the bartender, had mixed the wrong thing into Doug's drink. That maybe it hadn't been an accident at all. And if Marcel was involved, Joey couldn't be far behind. The problem was Joey had an alibi. He'd been with Vanessa in Puerto Rico when it happened, smiling across dinner tables, walking her along beaches, telling her she was the only one he trusted. But Vanessa knew better than most that alibis don't always tell the whole story. So she did what she had to do. She went to Joey's door herself. When he opened it, his smile was quick and easy, but she saw the flicker of something else in his eyes. Something dark. Vanessa, he said, his voice smooth as silk. You look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have, she shot back. Because Doug's blood is on someone's hands. And if it's yours, Joey, I'll find out. The air between them was electric, dangerous, the kind of silence that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And in that moment, Joey's smile faltered. Just for a second. But it was enough. Enough for Vanessa to know she was getting closer to the truth. Eva's choices. Vanessa's discoveries. Kat's shadow always looming. Joey's secrets. Fairmont Crest had become a place where no truth stayed hidden for long. And once the ugly truths began to surface, there would be no going back. The morning after Tomas and I crossed that line, I woke up with sunlight streaming through the blinds, cutting across the room like harsh truths I wasn't ready to face. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Kat. I didn't answer. Instead, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, every nerve in my body alive with guilt. I hadn't just made a mistake. I'd handed my sister a loaded gun. Because if she ever found out, she wouldn't hesitate to use it. Kat and I had a complicated relationship. We weren't just sisters. We were rivals, confidants, critics, and mirrors of each other. She had always been bolder, sharper, less afraid of consequences. But me? I was the one who tried to keep things balanced. The glue in our fractured family. The one who cleaned up after her storms. And now I was the storm. Later that day, Kat stopped by my apartment, all perfume and attitude, plopping herself onto my couch like she owned the place. You've been quiet, she said, her eyes scanning me the way only a sister's can, like she could see every secret I was trying to hide. What's going on? Nothing. I lied, fumbling with the coffee mugs on the counter. Work's just been busy. She smirked. Busy, huh? Or distracted? Don't tell me Tomas finally got under your skin. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. I forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow even to me. Don't be ridiculous. But Kat leaned back, crossing her legs, her eyes glittering with that dangerous mix of curiosity and suspicion. Eva, I know you better than anyone. You've got that look. I wanted to scream, to confess, to throw the whole truth at her just to wipe that smug expression off her face. But instead, I swallowed it down, burying it so deep it hurt, because admitting it out loud would make it real. And if Kat knew, she'd never let me forget it. Across town, Vanessa wasn't hiding anything. She couldn't afford to. The toxicology report haunted her, each line of medical jargon translating into betrayal. Doug hadn't just been careless. He'd been poisoned, intentionally or not. And Vanessa wasn't the kind of woman to sit quietly while others decided what version of the truth she deserved. She cornered Jacob at the precinct, slamming the report onto his desk. This isn't enough, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. I need names. I need to know who put this in his system. Jacob rubbed his temples. He looked tired, worn down by the weight of too many secrets. Vanessa, investigations take time. If I push too hard without proof. Proof, she snapped. Doug is dead, Jacob. My husband is gone, and all anyone wants to do is whisper about how he drank too much. But that's not the truth, and you know it. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. Don't you dare tell me to wait. Jacob stared at her, something shifting in his expression. Finally, he leaned closer, lowering his voice. There's talk that Marcel Malone might have mixed something into Doug's drink. But Marcel, he doesn't do anything without someone telling him to. Joey, Vanessa whispered, the name like poison on her tongue. Jacob hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. But Joey's careful. Too careful. If he's involved, it won't be easy to prove. Vanessa's hands clenched into fists. Then I'll find a way. Back at the garage, Tomas and I tried to pretend things were normal. He joked while he worked on cars, winked at me when no one was looking, brushed his hand across mine like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Not for me. Every glance, every touch, was a reminder of the secret we were carrying. One evening, as I was leaving, he caught my arm. Eva, he said softly, you're not regretting this, are you? I froze. Because the truth was complicated. Did I regret the way he made me feel alive? The way he made me forget Kat's shadow? Even for a moment?
No.
But did I regret the lie, the risk, the inevitable fallout?
God, yes.
I don't know, I whispered, pulling away. I don't know. He looked at me, something unspoken in his eyes. Then figured out, before we both get burned. And with that, he let me go. Meanwhile, Joey Armstrong wasn't used to people questioning him, least of all Vanessa McBride. When she'd shown up at his door, demanding answers, he'd managed to keep his composure. But the truth was, she'd shaken him. Because Vanessa wasn't just another grieving widow. She was sharp, relentless, and she had nothing left to lose. Joey sat in his office that night, staring at the casino's security footage. Frame after frame of people laughing, drinking, placing bets. And then Doug, stumbling, glass in hand, Marcel watching him too closely. Joey's jaw tightened. He hadn't ordered Doug's death. At least, not directly. But he also knew how this business worked. Sometimes, you didn't have to give the order. Sometimes, your people acted on what they thought you wanted. And that was almost worse. Because now, Joey had a problem. And her name was Vanessa. Back in my apartment, I sat staring at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. She looked tired, reckless. Like she'd made choices she couldn't undo. I thought about Kat, about how she'd laugh if she ever found out. About Tomas, about the way his touch lingered on my skin. about the thin line between proving someone wrong and losing yourself in the process. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I wasn't proving Kat wrong at all. Maybe I was proving her right about me, about Tomas, about everything.